Hello everyone, I do believe we're live. Who have we got tonight? Hello Finn, let's get your name on the screen. How are you doing, Finn? Hi Alan Goods, good evening, looking forward to the live stream. Well, it's been a couple of weeks since I put a stream out, so I thought I'd better do something tonight. I know the title's bullshit, but I've had a little idea. I thought I'd just do a little timeline, sort of like how many miles and what's liable to drop off your Mk5 Mondeo. So we'll go with that theme tonight. I'm just trying to see if I can make this screen any bigger. Oh yeah, I can. The only problem with that is I can't see the bloody comments. Not to worry. It's a slight technical difficulties tonight because in case anybody's noticed, we are not using the shitty webcam tonight. We've got a whole new webcam going on here. And as you can see, I'm not going bright white and then dark and then all shades of grey. So this webcam seems to be performing quite nicely under the lighting conditions. Who else have we got? Hello, Vivian. How are you? Good evening to you, Vivian. Hope you're doing well. Yes, indeed. It's Wednesday night again. I can only stay about an hour, you know. My private jet is about to whisk me off to Davos so I can shake a leg with Klaus Schwab, talk about how I'm going to control the world. So I'm on limited time tonight, guys. Mr. Dave, hello. How are you doing? Good evening to you. I haven't really actually worked this little. I'm used to a bigger screen. This is a smaller screen, so my eyesight isn't that good anymore. The small letters and all that. Johan, hello. How are you doing? Good Wednesday evening to you. Finn. Good evening, everyone. Alan, the Mk5 you fix must be taking dumps already. I'm guessing the mileage is getting very high now. Correct. Yes. You know, I could make a whole new video on that one. One moment. Yeah. These cars, in actual fact, what I'll do is when I get to a certain mileage tonight, I'll then bang on about what's really going wrong, and it's not good. So, and I'm then going to compare it to the same. Well, it's not the same engine. It's a similar 2 litre on the Mondeo Mark 4.5. When they got to a certain mileage, they just kept going. So I'm going to compare later on. I'm just seeing. Nah, not to worry. Right. Hello, Steve. I haven't used your little puller again lately, but yeah, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. And the hammer, it looks better. It looks quite nice, actually, that hammer. I don't really want to get it dirty. But yeah, thank you very, very much indeed. It will get some use. And good evening to you, Steve. Power, hello. Estonia also here. You're a long way from here, that's for sure. I hope your weather's better. We're going to be -2 tonight. Dan, hello. How's your what's that? Flanges? Everything's cool. Flanges. I think it says phalanges. Mr. Dave, I found your channel while looking for a tutorial on how to change the seat tilt lever on a Mark 6 Fiesta, then hooked ever since. You know, them seat tilt handles, if I wanted to change one of them, I would have to watch my own video because I always forget. And they piss me off changing them because it's not so much fitting the new one, it's getting the old one off the seat. They're a right bloody nuisance. If you don't know how to get them unlatched and off and put the new one on and slap it down, you're in trouble. You're going to end up breaking something. And by the way, before I made that particular video, I did check out the competition. And I thought to myself, I can do better than them because none of the others that have showed the same how to change them latches, they weren't showing enough detail. And I know that people, if I was watching one of them other videos, I'd be frustrated because I'd be saying, well, that's not telling me how to get it off and all this. So I thought I'd do it better. So that's why I made it. So anyway, Mr. Dave, good evening to you. I'm going to make a drink in a minute. I'm going to get the old JD out. Sam, hello Sam, how are you? Happy New Year to you. Even though the weather's taking a dump, it's flipping freezing lately, isn't it? Do you know something? Christmas, it came and went in a blip. I didn't even, do you know what? Look at that. Hardly even touched it. I believe Christmas should last 3-4 weeks, not 1 week. Then I would have probably got halfway through this bottle. Anyway, I'll get a little bit of ice. There we go. I do love the honey JD. It's very nice, very sweet. I'll wash that down later with a beer. Hello, Dan. Good evening. Playing battleships. That was a good game. I wouldn't be able to play it myself now, but that was a good game back in the day. Historical Association, how are you doing? Hello from Poland, or should I say over there in Poland. Anthony, hello, good evening to you. Before I carry on, well, I'll just go over it again. Mark 5 Mondeo, 2 litre diesel. How long before things start to fall off it? You know, like we get old, how long is it going to be before things start dropping off us? It's a similar sort of situation. The only thing is we're not made by Peugeot and Ford. So I'm going to start off at 10,000 miles. And by the way, I'm going to assume something here. Take into consideration everything I talk about tonight is going to be based on taxis, cars that are more or less being driven constantly. So if you're the kind of person that buys a Mark 5 Mondeo and you may do 3 or 4 miles to work and back every day and maybe a little bit around town at the weekend, it's not going to be the same results as what you get when you get a car that's being driven 18 hours a day. So there could be a big difference when you consider components being worked all the time compared to just being worked a few hours a day or half an hour a day. It can affect how things heat up, how things contract, and how things fail eventually. So it's something to just think about. But I'm going to start off at you've got a brand spanking new Mark 5 Mondeo. You've done your first 10,000 miles. What are you going to need doing to it? Hopefully, sod bloody all. Maybe an oil change. That'll probably be about it. There shouldn't be nothing wrong with it. Unless you've got Bluetooth issues or something like that. I don't know. So we've got past the 10,000 mile mark. There shouldn't be nothing wrong. And if there was something wrong, there would be a bit of a problem, really, wouldn't there? Stephen, my 2009 Jonah is still alive. When you've spent enough money, you're going to have to fling the Jonah overboard. You know that, didn't you? I have to keep telling this biblical story. Jonahs bring bad luck, so you fling them overboard. Once they're in the ocean and drifting away, the wind will pick up and the ship will sail on and you can get to where you're going. So if you haven't flung your Jonah overboard just yet, it can't be that bad. Anyway, good evening. Hello, Luke. What's the highest mileage you've got on a Mondeo? I don't even know anymore. I think I'm beyond the point of bloody caring, but I'm pretty sure we're looking at getting close to 400,000 miles. And that may well have already had a replacement engine by now. It probably has. In fact, we've got 3 taxis that need engines. It's just finding the time to do them. We're slowly starting to get a few engines in now. We're finding them off eBay and bloody Gumtree and places like that. But it's like, you know what? I'll come to it later anyway. Anyway, good evening to you, Luke. Steve, use 2 monitors. Comments on the other monitor. Yes. But you see, the problem is, Steve, I never think ahead very well. So if I've got another computer, right? But it's like I'd need to flipping find myself. It's like you see, I should have sorted all this out before I even started, but I don't. Right, hang on a minute. Oh, I've got Jordan Peterson first to watch. I'll get him later. Right, okay. It just said monetization helps everybody feel safe. What the hell are bloody YouTube playing at? Anyway, if I look up there, it's because I'm looking at the other monitor. If I'm looking here, because the old webcam was up there, this webcam is sort of like down here, so I'm all over the place tonight. Anyway. Right, where are we? You're at you, Steve. Okay. Now I can see where we are. It's like, oh my God. Right. There's even a flipping delay in I'm gonna turn the volume down on the other one because it's like there's a bad delay. Right. Stefan, hello. Happy New Year. Bon année de Is that French? I think I'll just stick to looking at this monitor. Otherwise, I'm going to be looking all over the place. Anyway, let's go to 20,000 miles and see what we've got. What would you need to replace on your Mark 5 at 20,000 miles? I can pretty much tell you a set of rear brake pads. And I will go back to when we first got these cars on 65 plates, which is 2015. The rear brake pads, they were lasting like 60, 70, 80,000 miles. It was unbelievable. Now, we're lucky if they last 15,000 miles or 20,000 miles. I don't know what the reason for that is, but it's terrible. At nearly every service we get in now, and we service the cars every 15,000 miles, and nearly all of them need rear brake pads. They wear the brake pads out at the back quicker than they do the front. And I've noticed something as well, which isn't helping. If you ever remember the brake pads you used to get with the Mark 5 Mondeos, the rear ones, they're now thinner. They've made them thinner. They're smaller. So they wear out bloody quicker. So basically, around about 20,000 miles, you're probably going to need a set of rear brake pads. Also, I would say on a Mark 5 Mondeo at 20,000 miles, apart from an oil change, a fuel filter. They've got a very small fuel filter and it does tend to clog up rather quickly. So that's it. Anyway, let's move on. I've got a good money saving little tip tonight. If you ever go to Tesco's, because Tesco's, I've got a love-hate relationship with Tesco's. I like the food, I like the quality of everything out of Tesco's, but it's getting so bloody expensive in there. In fact, let me just get this out of the way straight away, so you know, just in case you make the wrong guess here, right? When you go down the toilet roll section, because you know when Bill Gates tries to fling another pandemic at us, and you want to go out and buy some toilet roll, you need to buy the right stuff. Now you see this stuff here where it says Blossom Soft. Don't buy it. Do not buy Blossom Soft. You will get shit on your fingers. For £7 out of Tesco's, you can get Little Duck Supreme. This is good toilet roll, I'm telling you, and it's thick enough. It's thick. Your fingers won't go through it, and it's cheaper. So buy that. Anyway, let's carry on. Nigel, hello. I'm enjoying your channel. Well, thank you very much, Nigel. I do try to make it entertaining, and probably the fact I've never grown up anyway, so them two go hand in hand. You've got to stay young. Dimitri, hello, how are you doing? Do you own a Mark 5 Mondeo is the question. Or is it a Mark 4 or a 3 or a 2 or a 1? Yeah, probably ain't a 1 or a 2, that's for sure. Anyway, good evening to you. Canal Boating, hello. Can I charge a car battery while still on the car, or should I disconnect the earths? I would disconnect the earth lead or the positive lead. Disconnect one of the leads at least, then put your charger on it while it's still clamped into the car. But yeah, if it were me charging a car's battery on the car, I would disconnect one of the leads. Just make sure you got your radio code if you have one of them coded radios, because that can be annoying. What's that? I'm looking on the bigger screen now. The Milo Velo. Hello. Happy New Year. You are the best Fordman. I'm sure there are plenty of people out there that know tons more about Fords than I do. There is, obviously. There's some very, very talented, experienced people out there, but they just don't put themselves on YouTube, and they should do. You know, that's the whole thing about it all. If you know a lot, you should talk about it. But some people like to be private and don't want to talk about it. Here, look at this. Tyler, show everyone your coat. This is a gangster coat.
It's not.
Come and show your coat. It cost 130 quid.
It's not a gangster coat.
Look at the size of that hood.
Yes, it's a big hood.
That's like flipping. You could fit 2 heads in there. What's the make of that?
Novelty.
Not novelty. Oh, NVLTY.
Yeah. I'm going to order some donuts if that's all right.
Well, there's plenty of pizzas in the freezer.
I mean, I just like donuts.
Okay. Well, you can answer the door then and give them a tip.
Right.
You've got to give them a tip when they come to the door. I know you don't have to, but you should do. it's like you always tip the waiter. It's kind of like the thing to do. When you don't tip somebody, they probably walk away and think, what an asshole. That's what they think. So you always tip them and they'll thank you for it. It's just right, isn't it? If you get a service, like if you get a pizza guy come to the door, you give him a couple of quid, wouldn't you? You've got to teach the younger generation. Anyway, where were we? Mr. Dave, picture quality is the dog's bollocks. Do you know what this video quality is better. I was told that this was the dog's bollocks when I bought it, but it's very old now. It's gone on for some years. I decided to get a different laptop so this one has got a better webcam. Obviously, it's a more modern one, so it obviously works. But there again, bear in mind, this is only 720p. It's only high definition. Because I'm using StreamYard, and I'm not a paid subscription to it, so I'm only allowed to transmit in 720p. If I was paying StreamYard for the subscription, I'd be streaming in 1080p, so it'd be a lot better. But I'm not paying for it when you can get it for nothing. So there you go. But anyway, thank you for that. That's good. That's good information. I have noticed that this camera isn't going all bright and dark and all over the place. It seems to control the lighting a lot better. So yeah, brilliant. Carl, hello. Good evening to you. It's a lovely Wednesday evening. We've got the heating on full, pumping out all that CO2 into the atmosphere. And you know all that CO2 feeding the plants and the trees, isn't it? That's why I'm pumping it out of the old vent, out of the old boiler. Global warming is a load of bollocks made up by the globalists.
No, it's not actually.
Anyway, I'm not getting into an argument with you, Tyler.
You're heating the earth.
I'm right and you're wrong. Thomas. Hello, Thomas. Good evening to you. D. Nicholson, hello. My problem, 16 reg alternator, 42449 thermostat. That's a load of numbers, which doesn't mean a great deal to me. You'd have to take all them individually. Yeah, they I don't know what the numbers mean. You'd have to sort of like, you'd have to emphasize on that a little bit more. Anyway, should we get to 30,000 miles now? Because we've got a long way to go, you know, especially to get to the mileage some of these taxis bloody do. But at 30,000 miles, it depends when you change the oil on your Mk5 Mondeo. Would you do it every 10,000? I'm going to assume you do it every 10,000 miles. We do it every 15,000 miles for the simple fact there's nearly 100 cars. A 200-litre barrel of oil is now like £1,000. It's expensive bloody oil, that 0.30. So when you've got that many cars doing 15,000 miles in like not that many weeks sometimes for some of these drivers who never get out their car, it all adds up. So I'm going to assume you're doing your oil changes every 10,000 miles. So at 30,000 miles, you shouldn't have any issues at all, apart from oil changes. And at 30,000, you're probably going to be replacing your first set of front brake pads. That'll be about it. Just general service items. Sean. Hello, everyone. Hello to you, Sean. Sam. Hello. I have the Transit Connect and the back door has got broken wires. Okay. I done some broken wires the other day in a tailgate of a Volkswagen Golf. Common thing. I have got a interesting problem with the Skoda as well. I will WhatsApp you the photos. Okay, yeah, I'll be interested to see. Yes, broken wires are quite a common thing. You need to know where to look for, but there are some cars. I mean, I've had broken wires in the middle of wiring looms where you would never, ever expect a wire to be broken. Yet you pick the loom open, all in good wires, and you'll see one wire with a little bit of white powdery stuff on it, where there was probably a pinhole in the casing of the wiring from the factory.
Alright, Dad, are we going to the restaurant?
Tomorrow at 6:30, Indian restaurant. We're going to pig out. Yes, I'm having an Indian tomorrow. I can't wait. Dimitri, Alan, can a Connect 1.8 be plonked in a Mondeo 1.8? That's a good question. It may well be able to. I'd probably sort of like get the year about the same, because obviously as each year goes by, they keep changing things on them, and you may end up doing some modifications. But the basic engine should do. But you'd have to check out other things on it, like the injection system. It depends how much is going to come with the engine. If it's going to come with all the diesel injectors and fuel rail and everything like that, you want to make sure it's the same. So it may well be different. That's the thing. Although the basic engine should be around about the same. But I would definitely make sure that the Transit Connect engine is about the same year as the Mondeo. That way you've got half a good chance of making sure everything is going to match up with a minimum amount of fuss and messing around. Curbside Classics, hello. Even everybody, good evening to you. Luke, that's Wallace and Gromit. I'm looking for a Ford as my first. I'm looking for a Ford as my first car, which is a better option, Ford KA or a Fiesta 1.2. Both are cheap on insurance. Well, it depends. Well, if it was the KA, it depends what year it is, because you know a lot of the early KAs just rotted away in like next to no time. They were made of rubbish. The Fiesta would probably be the better option if it was an early one. If you're getting like a newish KA or Fiesta, then either, whatever suits you, because the more modern ones are a lot better. They're much improved. So yeah, if it depends what year it is. The newer the better, really. Ian, always class you as my Ford expert. Love watching your video. Well, thank you very much, Ian. I'm not really a Ford expert. I just sort of like, I work on Mondeos most of the time because it's taxis. So when things start to fall off and we have to find out the answers, and sometimes it's a long road to finding the answers, but I mean, I know a few things about Mondeos, so, and I like cameras as well, so I thought, why not put it on YouTube, you know? Anyway, God damn, that whiskey's good. 40,000 miles we're on now. Oil change. You might want to change your air filter at 40,000 miles. Personally, I'd change it at 50,000 miles. So, but it's entirely up to you. Maybe your second fuel filter change. Maybe your second set of rear brake pads. Depends how bad your car is eating them, or how thin Ford have made the rear brake pads, so they wear out quicker. But not a lot should go wrong at 40k. So we'll move on. It's all right. It's okay. We'll get to the good stuff later as we start to plonk some mileage on. But there again, if you buy one of these cars from new, you don't want nothing to go wrong with it, do you? You want to be able to take it in for a service, have your oil change and filter and whatever, and that's it. You don't want all these extra expenses. Mr. Dave, 1.6 TDCi engine, do they have a dual mass flywheel?
Oh, I think I'll put collect instead of delivery, so I might have to go up.
I've not had a gearbox off of 1.6 TDCi, so I'm not 100% sure on that. I would have probably thought that if it's being a diesel, they may well do. They may well do. I would probably sort of like the easy way to find out is just ring up your motor parts supplier or Ford or anything like that. Give them your registration, and they'll be able to tell you. So, but I'm not 100% on that because we haven't got no 1.6 TDCIs, and I've not dealt with any either. So, but I would pretty much assume they probably would. Richard, hi from Austria. Well, hello. Keep the gates of Vienna closed. What the hell am I hanging on about? Anyway, hello Richard. Good evening. Dan, sound. Curbside classics. Fiesta all day. Oh, I see. Fiesta all day, yeah. Sean, lower mileage Mark 4.5 or higher mileage Mark 5? Oh, God. Well, let me tell you something. How can I even compare this? If the Mark 4.5 and the Mark 5 were two different women, and the Mark 5 was the better looking woman, yet the Mark 4.5 was the more reliable woman. So say the Mark 5 was a bit flirtatious and she liked to play around, maybe cheat on you a few times, but the Mark 4.5 was dependable. What one would you go for? That's the best answer I can give you. You can go for the lust for the Mark 5 because she's a lot prettier, but the Mark 4.5 isn't that great in looks, but she'll always be by your side. So that's my answer to you. I know that's not much of an answer, but it's the best I can give. Hello, Dwayne. How are you? You survived Christmas like the rest of us. What's the difference between 2 litre and 2.2 diesel pump on Duratorque engine? I shouldn't think there's much. They're probably about the same. Bus coming through.
Probably I click connect. I've actually done.
Watch the roads because it's dark.
Yeah. I'll have to go. When it says ready to collect, I'll go then. I'll leave then.
I should think they're probably the same pump. It's only a difference in cylinder capacity, so I shouldn't think they would have changed the high pressure fuel pump just for the sake of a couple hundred extra cc. So I should think they're the same. Anyway, Dwayne, good to hear from you. I like to hear from you. Just know you're still alive. So you should drop in every Wednesday. If I don't hear from you, then I might think something's wrong. See you later. Mohammed Ali, the boxer. Hello there. Just wondering, did you have any turbo leak in Mark 5 Mondeo? Turbo leak. When you say turbo leak, do you mean like the fumes, exhaust fumes leaking out the turbo? Because we've had a couple of them. You get all the black soot at the back of the turbo area, and you have to change the turbo. So yeah, that's the one that springs to mind when you say turbo leak. The exhaust fumes, and you can smell them in the car. It's horrible. We've had a couple, yeah. Anthony. So Alan, I need some help badly with my S-Max. It was for the other night in the morning. My clutch pedal got stuck halfway up and now gets burning smell, but clutch isn't slipping. Well, if your clutch pedal gets stuck halfway up, I mean, there's a number of things that can be wrong there. Number one, you want to check your pedal box. Make sure your clutch pedal isn't sitting a lot higher than your brake pedal, because if it is, then I'd say the master cylinder rod, the little plastic rod that comes out of the master cylinder and connects to your clutch pedal, is snapped. And they'll still make the clutch pedal work, but the pedal will mess up eventually. Make sure that everything's connected onto your pedal properly, because the linkage that goes onto the pedal can break. And if it's not, you can't see nothing wrong with the pedal box or the clutch pedal, chances are it will probably be a slave cylinder problem. You would probably think it'd be a master cylinder problem, but chances are it's a slave cylinder problem. I've had it loads of times, and they end up where the slave cylinder bursts and all the fluid drains out the bottom of your gearbox, and you have to replace the clutch and slave cylinder and everything. So keep an eye on it. That's all I can say. Glenn, hello. What is live going to be on the taxis? What is live going to be on the Monda taxis? I don't get you. You'd have to rephrase that. I'm not quite sure what you mean. Anyway, we're going to be now at 50,000 miles. So what's going to go wrong at 50,000 miles? Nothing at all. An air filter replacement and possibly a pollen filter if you can be bothered to change it. I normally leave pollen filters to a good over 100,000 miles, or maybe sometimes I leave them until the actual air can't get through anymore and there's no air going up to your screen. Then it's time to change. Then you know you've got your money's worth out of them. So 50k, no problems at all. Shouldn't be. Stephen from Dublin, Ireland. I drive a M4 Mondeo, a Mark 4 Mondeo, 12-year-old, and in very good nick, and a great car to drive. Low mileage, 11,000 kilometers. Bloody hell. 2-beat flywheels and a steering rack later. Nice. There are some very good examples out there. It's the same old story, isn't it? Some of these cars have got exceptionally low mileage. They've been garaged and they've been well looked after and they're in mint condition. So if you've got one of them, it's worth hanging on to it. Save you buying a new car, innit? I've got to change legs. I like to sit with one leg up in the air. I can't sit. I can't sit on the bloody stall. It's like I have to stand up and put one leg up on the stool like that. Anyway, yes. Anyway, Stephen, good evening to you. Dan, I'm looking at buying a Mark 6 Fiesta 1.4 TDCi with 150k, £1,200. Yeah, I mean, I checked the injectors on it though. Check they're not leaking. And when I say leaking, I mean the seals, the copper seals leaking the fumes. If it's got a cover on the engine, you want to pull it off and have it running and make sure you can't hear no chuffing noise of like compression out the cylinder leaking. They're common for it. Then you get all that black tarry gunge around the injectors. You start breathing that in while you're driving, it'll kill you quick. So yeah, that's one thing to look out for. But if you want to get it checked out properly, make sure it's got an MOT on it and watch out for a bit of corrosion on the seals and stuff. Thomas, have a Mark 5 2016. Only one issue I got with front windscreen defrost ain't working, and as far as I got to the bottom of it, it's a battery needs to be replaced. Apart from that, not a day's bother. Yeah, well, them windscreens, they pack up after so long anyway. Heated windscreens are nice. So I'll take it it's got a heated windscreen. That's what you mean. Yeah, it's nice to get a car where you haven't got to spend no money on it, especially now when there's so many other priorities like paying your electric bill. Anyway, good evening to you, Thomas. Replacing my rear shock and mount this weekend. Some tips. Well, the best tip I can give you is have a can of freeing oil and a wire brush. And if any nuts and bolts in that, a little bit corroded, clean them with a wire brush, spray plenty of freeing oil on them before you actually, and then go away for an hour or so, and then come back. Jack the car up, put axle stands on the seals or under the chassis, and make sure when you disconnect the shock absorber, you've got a jack underneath the spring or axle so it don't drop down. So just little things to note. But it should go straight enough. As long as nothing's seized up, you should be okay. Hello, Philip. Hello over there in Ireland. I'll tell you what, we've got quite a few people that are from Ireland, which is quite interesting. Well, hello to you. Good evening. What's that? Neil? Neil and Bradley. Well, hello. Hope you're well. We got a problem with my Focus tyre pressure sensors. Is it the same technique testing them as it is with the Mondeo? I'm not really sure about Focus. You see, some of these cars are different. Some of them, they have the sensor, they have the little unit behind the valve in the wheel, but you haven't got to program them. You can literally just fit them onto the wheels, put your tyre on and everything, and you may have to do a reset on your dash using the buttons on your dash, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Whereas other cars like the Mondeo, not all the time, but sometimes you literally have to program the sensors in. But I done a KA a few weeks back. I replaced one of the sensors and I didn't have to do nothing. Just put the new sensor on the wheel, put the tyre back on. The car just recognised it and that was it. Done. So the best way to know is if you're fitting new sensors, just put them on and start the car up and drive it. Maybe reset it on your dash if there's a reset option. There probably will be, because if you get a low tyre pressure, there's going to be a low tyre pressure symbol come up on your dash. So you'd have the option to reset that using your buttons on your steering wheel or your indicator stalk or something. There'll be a button there so you can change the menu settings and then reset your tyre pressure monitor. So I would do that, and if it doesn't clear and it still says there's a problem, then you may have to code them in. But I'm not sure about a Focus. So I say this is the problem. We only do Mondeos, and I'm not. Do you know what? In all the Focuses we've got, if any of them have got tyre pressure monitoring system on them, none of them have been a problem yet. So no, I would basically just put the sensor on and let it and see what happens. Some of these cars that you just don't have to program them at all. They just recognise them and that's it. Hello, Gary. 9 years of taxi, 2013 Mondeo been great, 180 horsepower. Time for a new car. Should I stay with Mondeo? Oh, I have no idea. I would just say to you, buy the car you like the look of. It's like, unless you're the kind of person that just wants practicality. But for me, if I was to go out and buy a car, for my own personal car, I would have to buy something I like the look of. So, and sometimes that would mean taking a chance. Obviously, you'd do your Google searches, wouldn't you? But I know Mondeos are nice looking cars, so I mean, it's entirely up to you. What looks good to you? There's an awful lot out there, that's the problem. And a lot of it could be in the same kind of price bracket. So I don't know. Mohammed, did you have any turbo leak in Mark 5 Mondeo? We've already had that question, haven't we? Yeah. Turbo leak. Exhaust gas is leaking. What's that? Neil, 130,000 on my 16-plate Mondeo, has had a new engine, new gearbox, lower ball joints are changed annually. That's not very good, actually, is it? New engine and gearbox on 130,000 miles. That's actually bloody terrible. I could understand the ball joints, you might want to change them, but flipping heck, what have you done to warrant having to change an engine at 130,000 miles? Most of these engines at 100,000 miles are still bloody good. Mark 4 Mondeo I had was way more reliable. That's quick.
Well, it was already ready for collection. So I had to bite down. I'm going to do that again.
Right, where are we? We're going to go up to 60,000 miles now. Oh, it smells good.
Yeah. Feels like it.
60,000 miles. Once again, nothing happening, so we're gonna move on. Stephen, do the cabs get scrapped when they are taken off the fleet, or are they sold off? No, they'll be sold off. They will get scrapped when they're written off by some of the drivers, but generally speaking, they will be sold off. Like there'll be a whole batch of them get sold off, and normally you'll get a trader come down from up north or somewhere, and he'll just buy a job lot. Like they've sold them in the past, like the Mark 3s and the Mark 4s and that. they'll sell a whole load off for like, I'm going back a few years now, it'd be like £1,000 or £1,500 a car, something like that. And they'll take the car with all the paperwork and that'll be the end of it. They like to get rid of the cars out of the area, so they're not around here no more. Because no one around here wants to buy a taxi anyway. even though they've been looked after well, but even so, when you get a car with such high mileage on it, it's a bit concerning. Richard, my 2016 Mark V 1080p diesel with power shift and all-wheel drive is as good as new. Flipping heck. 4-wheel drive. Bloody hell. Well, I hope it stays like that, being 4-wheel drive, but that's good. I bet it holds the road well. Flipping heck. I think I'm yet to see a 4-wheel drive Mondeo. It's not something we have come in the garage every day or every year. Adam, how come Steve never bought any new Mondeos in 21-22 when he had a chance? Because there was another company that owned the taxi business during that time. Steve didn't own the taxis. That's why he didn't buy any cars. He was selling them off. But it's all fallen through. So he now owns the taxis again. It's a long story. One day when it's all over, one day when it's all over, I'll probably tell the story, but at the minute, as it stands, he didn't own the taxis in 21 and 22. Now in 2023, he owns the taxis again. He still wants to sell the taxis. He wants rid of the taxis because it's too much aggravation. So, but as things stand, he now owns them again, and it's a case of he will be thinking about if he can't sell the taxis, then it's going to be seriously on the cards to probably replace a lot of these Mark V Mondeos for something else, which will be coming later. If he can sell it all well and good, then there's no problem. But if he can't sell it, then he'll have to get newer cars. So anyway, I'll move on. 70,000 miles we're on now from our brand spanking new Mark V Mondeo. Once again, that's 70,000 miles, apart from general service items, oil filter, fuel filter. That's probably about it. Maybe some brake pads, not discs yet. So nothing interesting going on. Hello, Dwayne. 20,000 miles, the car. What car's 20,000 miles? Oh, one. Are you buying one, or have you already bought it? Or is that 200,000 miles? No, that says that's 20,000 miles. That's low mileage. Oh, did I miss somebody? Sorry, Vox Wolf. Funny you've got the name of the Vauxhall there, because we had a Vauxhall win today. It was an Insignia. Lovely. In fact, I'm not even going to go there. I want to forget about it already, but the car's gone, so I don't care no more. I'll say it another day. Hi, Steve. At 20,000, I had to replace the rear discs. You've got to be shitting me. 20,000 rear discs at 20,000 miles. What the hell was wrong with them? That's shocking. I would have liked to have seen them discs. I might have had to disagree with you. You know, let me just point something out here, because I don't work for Quick Fit, and I'm not going to tell you that a little scratch in your disc is going to be the difference between heaven and hell, and you're going to need your discs replacing. As far as an MOT test goes, it doesn't matter what your discs look like, as long as A, they are thick enough, or B, they are not causing serious judder. So they can look like hell warmed up. As long as they are working as intended to, they will pass an MOT. For bog roll, I recommend Little Florets quilted in the blue 9-pack. How much though? How much for your 9-pack at Lidl? That 24-pack of Little Duck Supreme was £7 in Tesco's. Now I don't think Tesco's need to be hearing this because they'll put the price up. But that, I'm telling you, that Supreme Little Duck, that is a good price. They almost get into the sort of like the same kind of price as Poundland were, or the Pound Stretcher, which is no longer around here. But they used to sell some good quality toilet paper at a reasonable price. This is not your Andrex, but it's almost as good as. Hello, Mick. Toilet paper tonight is what we're talking about. None of that toilet roll for me. My finger already broke. I know where you're coming from, Mick, because when I used to smoke many fags a day. I used to get like the brown fingers, you know, between your middle and your forefinger. Anyway, my whiskey's yeah, well, there's nothing. Well, I mean, let's face it, there's nothing worse than using toilet paper that you pay good money for, and your fingers go straight through it. You think, bloody hell, what are they trying to sell you these days? Rich, hello. Why is it so hard to remove the bottom ball joint on a Mark III Mondeo? It come halfway and I just won't. To remove the bottom ball joint, I take it you're trying to remove the ball joint and not the arm, just the ball joint itself. So you've got 3 rivets. If you haven't got the right equipment to remove the rivets, then you may as well just change the bloody arm. You just buy an arm with the new ball joint on it. But if you've got you'd need a decent air chisel. What you do is I would remove the whole suspension leg out of the wheel arch, okay, take it off. Then you've got your arm there with your ball joint. You would get an axle stand underneath the ball joint where the rivets are, and a socket at the bottom of the rivet, or one of the rivets. So you've got some solid weight with the arm pressing on it. And then you would get an angle grinder and cut like a cross in the top of each rivet, and then use your angle grinder to grind off the top half of all 3 rivets. Make sure they're all nice and ground off properly. Center punch each of the rivets in the middle. Then you get your air chisel, and if you've got a decent air chisel, it'll push the rivets out. You haven't got to drill them out, it will push them out. But a lot of these cheap air chisels are crap and they won't do it. You've got to have a proper good one. So unless you're wanting to spend hours trying to drill the rivets out, it's just not worth it. You may as well just buy a complete arm with a ball joint on it. But yeah, they're a bit of a sod. But it's, once again, if you've got the right equipment, then you can do it in they're not too bad to do. If the car has a battery monitoring system, such as the Mk5, charge on car with the negative on the car end of the earth strap. If the car has a battery monitoring system, such as the Mk5, charge on car with the negative on the car end. No. Oh, okay. On the fence, I've got a 2-litre diesel 2013 Mondeo. The temperature gauge fluctuates between quarter and half way while driving. What could this be, or is it okay? Well, I mean, normally if you get the gauge fluctuating around, I mean, the easiest thing to change would be the temperature sensor, which would be, it was going to be on your thermostat housing. Put a new temperature sensor in it. Normally, if the thermostat was stuck open or something like that, your heater wouldn't be very hot. And, you know, you could start the engine up and you could test that anyway, because the top radiator hose would get hot rather quickly. So I would change the temperature sensor. That would be I had that on my Scorpio once. The gauge used to sort of like keep dropping off and then going back up and dropping off and going off, and it was just a faulty temperature sensor. So that's the easiest answer to it to try first of all. I mean, failing that, you could have problems with your gauge or something like that, but you want to go for the easiest thing to try and cure it to start with. Terence, hello. That coat cost more than my Mondeo Mk4 front brake pads and discs. Flipping heck, £110. They ain't cheap, are they? Mind you, everything's got up now. Yeah. Gone are the days when things were cheap. Mind you, wasn't them days just before 2020, before the pandemic? Metal worker, hello. Not many tipping you tonight. Another mech on YouTube. Rain Man Ray accidentally went live for 10 minutes and got 500. Bloody hell. He must have been popular. Flipping heck, yeah. he must have thought it was his lucky night. Don't tell me he's doing it all the time now. He's permanently live. Miles when changed. What's the top safe mileage you would buy a Mk5 2-litre diesel before the engine needs major repairs? The top safe. Well, it's, you know, that's a difficult question, because it depends how many miles you intend to do. So I would probably say if you're in the market for buying a Mk5 Mondeo, you probably want to buy one. I'm going to say what we're on now, 80,000 miles. Between 80 and 90,000 miles. And that's where we're at, 80,000 miles. Because at 80,000 miles, you're just starting to enter the territory where things could start to go wrong. But chances are you could well be lucky. So at 80,000 miles, once again, apart from your general servicing, brakes, pads, stuff like that, you may well need a set of front brake discs on your Mk5. I wouldn't say rear discs, they seem to last a lot longer. So at 80k, possibly front brake discs. Your alternator, overrunning pulley, or the alternator itself could stop charging. It would probably be a bit of a long shot. You'd be a bit unlucky if it did fail on you at 80k. but you're starting to get into that kind of mileage now where certain things are going to be on borrowed time. But 80,000, I'm going to say front discs is what's on the agenda for your Mark 5. And by the way, what is the time and how much battery life have I got left? I've got loads of battery life. It's 9 o'clock. So we've been going for an hour now, so I better speed things along a little bit. 16 plate Mark 5, only the alternator pulley took a dump. 185,000 kilometers. All good so far after 211. That's good. That's not bad at all. Hello, Mondo. How are you? How's it going? Big fella. You mean little fella? Hope you got those garage doors down. I'll tell you something though. We've got a really good heater. But as soon as you open one of them shutters, I'll tell you, the cold just comes in. It's like, shut the bloody door. Yeah, it certainly has got flipping cold lately. Anyway, good evening to you, Mondo. I'm liking this new camera. It's doing it. It's doing its thing, and it hasn't overexposed and underexposed and messed me around tonight. Chris, sounds like the Mark IV was definitely a better car. Do you know? I don't think the Mark IV was possibly maybe a better car. If you just took the basic car and compared it to a Mark V, if you put the Mark, because most of the problems that go wrong with the Mark V is engine related. That's the problem. It's all the bullshit they put on the engine for these Euro 6 emissions. That's what the problem is. Whereas the Mark 4.5 didn't have all that. They were Euro 5 emissions, weren't so stringent. So, and although the Mark 4.5 still had a fairly large EGR valve on it, it was pretty rare to go wrong. They didn't have that big plastic housing that cracks on them. The thermostat housing on the Mark 4.5 was just a plastic housing. And for some reason, they seem fine. They are very, very reliable. Yet the Mark V thermostat housing is a plastic housing, but it's got an electronic thermostat in it. And they're just forever leaking. It's not the thermostat that actually plays up. It's just the plastic housing where all the glued joints are and the seal where it bolts onto the cylinder head. They just mess up and crack and start leaking. It's just, I don't know. It's bizarre. But the Mark IV was definitely more reliable, yeah, without a doubt. It had less emission-related items that went wrong. We've got Mark IVs still, whole row of them. And they've done a lot more mileage. I mean, we're talking about between 300,000 and 400,000 miles. And we've had none of this. We've had none of these water leaks. It's very, very rare we've even had a coolant leak on a Mark IV. And they seem to be so reliable. The biggest flaw with the Mark 4.5 was that stupid nozzle on the exhaust that squirts diesel into the exhaust for the DPF when they clog up. Apart from that, they've been ever so good. You can get in them cars and you just know you're going to get where you want to get to. You haven't got to worry about a flipping thermostat housing end cap blowing off and losing all your coolant, or water pumps and going wrong and all that. Anyway, I shall carry on. Jackson Systems, good evening. Hello to you. Good to hear from you. Neil, you're my first stop when it comes to needing to know how to do anything. Well, I'm going to give you another piece of advice now. It's that time again. 1 minute. I need to wash down the whiskey. I'll pick that up later with a bottle of Beck's. Cheers. I like the old Beck's beer. It's not bad. Yeah, it was time. It's time to open the mail. Mail time. Once again, they haven't got my name. They've just put legal occupier. Now listen, bear in mind, this has been going on for 4 years now. Official notice, investigation opened. So after 4 years of investigating me, they've just opened an investigation. I don't know what to... I'll tell you what I need to do, what I should do. I should get hold of all the climate craptivists and get them to ask the BBC why they keep wasting so much paper. I mean, don't get me wrong, I could use this for jotting down a few notes, you know. It's a handy little notepad, but they keep sending all this waste paper to my house and it only goes in the bin. To the legal occupier, this is an official warning. They're warning me now after 4 years of sending me about 100,000 letters that we are carrying out an investigation of your address. They've been investigating me for the last 4 years. Why has it taken them 4 years? We have asked you to contact us several times. I think it's more than several times. But you have not responded. No, because I can't be asked to speak to wankers. There is still no record of a TV license at this property. No, that's because I'm not going to pay for it. So fuck off. Right, the law, it is a criminal offence to watch or record live, and then they're just going into the same old bullshit. But yeah, yours faithfully. No, it's not. It's yours, fuck off. You see, they keep sending the bullshit in the hope that whoever reads this will be frightened into buying a TV license. But I don't even watch TV anymore. I can't be bothered of it. Do you know, you know, the BBC, once upon a time, they were great. I mean, they've got the ability to make the most fantastic documentaries and programs. Yet they want to take this narrative, this one-sided narrative, and go with that everything you watch. And people got sick and tired of it. That's why a lot of people will not pay their TV license no more. They want a fair, even debate from both sides of the spectrum, not one-sided. And unfortunately, they've gone one-sided. So people are switching off. Anyway. That's that letter done with. Let's carry on. Mondo, have you got a company vehicle now the German shed was scrapped? Yeah. No, I just palm a car here and there from work. Generally, if there's a car with a problem or something needs testing, I'll take that car home. You know, just stuff like that. So I'm in sort of like all different cars all the time now. But it's quite handy because quite often we need to road test the car and make sure everything's okay, especially like if you've had an engine replaced. You can run it around for a few days, make sure everything's okay. Stuff like that. So I'm in sort of like all different cars all the time, actually. So, yeah, I haven't bought a car yet. Thank you, Steve, for the timestamp. I wasn't going to make this run too long tonight, so I'm hoping I can sort of like get along with this. But hello, Mark. How easy to block off the EGR on my 2010 2-litre UFBA engine, and what I think if has that got the pipe? There's a pipe. Have you got the EGR valve down the back of the engine, and there's a silver pipe that runs around the back of the engine round to the front to the air intake? Because if that's the case, that silver pipe that runs from the EGR over the top of the engine or down around the side sort of thing, you can unbolt it from the EGR and put a plate of metal across there. There's two little screws that hold that pipe on. If you do that, you can put a plate in there and put that pipe back on. That means no fumes from the EGR or exhaust gas from the EGR is going to come from the EGR through into your air intake. So yeah, you can blank it off quite easily. I would leave the electrics connected up though. Otherwise, you disconnect the electrics, it will bring on the engine management light, no doubt. But yeah, I think they're okay to blank off. Yeah. My John, 1.6 TDCi. Yes, they do have a dual mass, but you can get solid fly. Yeah, I don't know what it'd be like with a solid flywheel. I really don't know. I've heard in the past it can be a very harsh drive because these dual mass flywheels, they take a lot of the shock out, the load, and all that. So they do serve a purpose. I know they're a bloody nuisance, but they do serve a purpose. I would be inclined to keep the dual mass in it. Well, I couldn't tell you for sure what it would be like to drive with a solid flywheel. Anyway, we're at 90,000 miles now, and time's cracking on. 90,000 miles, probably not a lot going on. So, and this is what I've always maintained. In actual fact, let's just skip to 100,000 miles. Mark 5 Mondeo, it's been serviced every 10,000 miles from new up to 100,000 miles. You should not really have anything serious go wrong. Front brake discs would probably be the worst of it. Maybe an alternator. We are now in the territory where the EGR valve could start to leak. They sometimes can go wrong electrically, but it's fairly rare. They tend to leak more than they go wrong electrically. The thermostat housing could start to leak around about, from 80,000 onwards, really. So at 100,000, you may have a thermostat housing that starts to leak. But once again, I'm basing this on taxis that are on the go all the time. I've seen cars that are on 160, 170, 180,000 miles, and they've never had an EGR valve replaced or a thermostat housing replaced. And I'm kind of figuring that some of these cars, they're not on the go all the time. They're not driven as much as a taxi is. It may make some of these components last a lot longer. So, but in my findings on all these taxis, anything from 80,000 miles onwards, thermostat housing could start to leak, EGR could start to leak, alternator could pack up. But kind of rare if the car's looked after. So I'll carry on. Rupert, hello. We have just bought a 12 plate titanium export estate, brilliant motorway car, but a bit lumpen and stodgy round the town. You only realise how big it is when you park it in the supermarket car park. Well, it's like everything, isn't it? You've got to get used to it. When you've been in it for long enough, you'll soon sort of forget about all that. It'll just be like Yeah, I'm used to this now. Oh, I know what you mean. I know exactly where you're coming from. Brian, ESC service coming up on dash Mk5. Yes, if it's coming up ESC and you've got like 10,000 lights all flashing up, it'll be one of your front ABS wheel speed sensors that's packed up, or the wires breaking. They're common for it. You'd have to get it plugged in to a scanner to see which side front sensor's packed up and just replace that sensor. Sean, that was a great answer, Alan, and I fully understand. Thank you. Okay, cheers. Corrigene 71. Highest mileage Mark 5 Mondeo is Peugeot diesel 2 litre. The trouble is, these Peugeot engines, they are good. They do well. They do very well. But for some reason, unbeknown to me, if you took a Mark 4.5 2-litre Peugeot diesel, you can do 350,000 miles on a serviced engine and it's still going and runs as sweet as a bloody nut. You take the Mark 5 2-litre diesel Peugeot engine, which it kind of looks the same, although there are quite a few differences. By the time you get to, let me think, over 200,000, between 200 and 300,000, maybe 250k, you're going to be needing to replace the timing chain. So there's something going on there. Anyway, hello to you, Daniel. Good evening. Oh, God, don't ask me to say your name. Zdenek. I'll just do Denek. Hello. What is the life on Mondeo taxis? What is the life? Now you're asking, flipping heck. What would you like me to say? It depends how much money you can fling at it. That's how you keep it alive. Whatever it needs, here's a blank check. You'll keep it going, believe me. Because the actual car, the car as a whole, isn't the problem. It's the engine and everything bolted to it is what the problem is. Anything else is great. So if you've got plenty of money, cha-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching, yes, it will keep going. Anyway, we were at 100,000 miles. We're now going to jump a little bit now because time's ticking. We're going to go up to 150,000 miles. And what could fall off your Mark 5 at 150,000 miles? Depending how you drive, you may well need a clutch and flywheel. Now, I'm judging on these taxis, the flywheels are generally taking a dump before the clutch wheel. In actual fact, I can't even remember the last time I had a clutch plate literally wear out. It's always been the flywheel rattling, the dual mass flywheel. And they will normally go between 100,000 miles and around about 200,000 or maybe a bit more. I've had a few that have done over 200,000 miles on the original clutch and flywheel. It depends who the driver is. As these taxis, they have drivers in them all the time. I mean, some drivers stick to a certain car for a long time and they treat it well. Some cars have many drivers in and out of them all the flipping time and they get hacked around all over. So I'm going to put the clutches and flywheels down to around about 150,000. And also, at 150,000 miles, you're also looking at the possibility of a diesel fuel injector playing up. So, and when I say play up, normally it's a case of the injectors will send too much fuel back to the tank. They will leak off too much fuel. So in which case, when you've got your foot down and you're trying to overtake someone on the motorway, too much fuel is being leaked off out of the fuel rail. And so your ECU will recognise the drop in fuel pressure, and it will put your car into limp mode, and it will take a dump on you. And you have to pull over, switch the engine over, off, start it up again, then you can drive off again. So it's all money. Oh, by the way, I've actually missed something out here, haven't I? Because when we got to 100,000 miles, I should have said this earlier, at 100,000 miles, I would change the cam belt. The interval is 125,000 miles on these cars. I would do it at 100. And the reason for that is I've taken the cam belts off at 100,000 miles, and some of them look a bit ragged. They look like, yeah, I'm glad I'm changing it right now. Yeah, on the Mark 4.5 Mondeo, if I took a cam belt off at 100,000 miles, some of them look really good. Really, like, they seem to fare better, the belts do. They don't seem to be sort of like under so much strain. So, but yeah, I would do your cam belt tensioners and water pump at 100,000 miles. If you want to stretch it out to 125, then on your head be it. But that is Ford recommending the maximum amount of miles you should change that belt at. So yeah, my apologies, I should have said that. But anyway, we're now back up to 150,000 miles where you may need to do a clutch. And so I shall carry on a few more people, then we'll jump up to 200,000 miles. Bob, hello. My Mondeo TDCi 1.8 diesel is hesitant to start and is noisy only in the sub-zero weather until engine is warm. Well, number one, diesels don't like the cold. You know, they just don't like. I mean, diesels are heat engines. They don't like cold whatsoever. And if it's a 1.8, the first thing I would say to you is check your glow plugs. Normally, you can test them with a multimeter. You'd have to take off the actual wiring tab along them. Then you can put your multimeter across them and check for resistance. And if they're open circuit, they're dead. So when we used to have the Mark II Mondeos, the 1.8 turbo diesels, we were forever changing glow plugs in them engines. And when the glow plugs die, if you had like 2 glow plugs die, they can be a right bitch to get started in the cold. And they would chug and chug and chug, kick out a load of smoke, put a new set of glow plugs in them, and it was right as rain again. So that would be the first thing I would check. Daniel, what is the foam shroud round the injectors on Mondeo Mk5 2016? It appears to be melting. And it's sound deadening. It's just like sound deadening. I don't know if you noticed that the engines on the Mk5s, they are, how can I put it? I would say, generally speaking, a lot of them are more noisy than you would find on a Mark 4.5. And I think it's just the design of the engine, for whatever reason. The Mark 4.5s were quite quiet engines for a diesel. The Mark 5s, they are definitely a lot noisier, although some of them, I mean, I could get in the Mark 5s, some of the engines are quiet and smooth and lovely, while other ones and I'm talking about low mileage engines, just seem quite bloody rattly. And I think all that lagging, it's sound deadening. That's why they have these covers. I mean, I know that the top cover is like to cover all the crap so it looks nicer, but all that thick wadding there around the injectors is to stop the noise. If you removed all of that, it'd be a lot noisier. You'd notice it. John, hello. Ran a 2015 Mondeo 2-litre TDCi for 6 years from new. Alternator clutch pulley was first to go at 82,000 miles. The water pump failed at 107,000 miles when it became loose on the shaft. Splines and would spin. Yeah, that's a good point. I think I've already covered the actual alternators. From 80,000 miles, you're on borrowed time as to whether the alternator is going to stop charging or the overrunning alternator pulley is going to lock up. Normally, if the pulley locks up, you'll know about it because the engine will sound different, because the alternator belt will be flapping, it'll be vibrating like that. It'll make a right horrible noise. And if you lift your bonnet, you'll see the belt flapping around. So you'd have to do something about it. We've had a lot of them pulleys actually where the drivers have sort of like just carried on driving, and eventually the pulleys just break up and fall off, and then they're stuck. They have to call a recovery truck. But the water pumps, yeah, the water pumps on the Mk5, I mean, you'd be pretty unlucky, although it is becoming quite common now, that the impeller comes loose on the shaft. So the water pump isn't actually turning the water and circulating the water through the engine. So, and I've had it a number of times now, and it causes overheating issues. And you're obviously not getting the hot air inside the cabin either. So you'll start to notice something's not quite right. But yeah, that is becoming quite a common thing. And these water pumps on the Mk5s, they do tend to pack up. I've had a water pump leak at less than 70,000 miles. I mean, I would change the water pump at 100,000 miles, but it's quite often is the case they're not getting to 100,000 miles. They'll either leak or that impeller will come loose. Although I'd say on average, they're not that big a problem. You know, most water pumps do reach the 100,000 miles without a problem, but you do get some. But if I go back to the Mark 4.5 2-litre diesel, I've never had that problem. I've never had a water pump leak to start with, or the impeller come loose. So maybe I've been lucky. Bike Squad, hello. I got a Ford Fiesta 2003. Then I drive it to the drive it. The hand brake stays on. I put my foot on the brake. It goes off. I drive it. The handbrake stays on. Then I put my foot in the brake. It goes off. When you say the handbrake stays on, do you mean the handbrake light, like the fluid light or the parking brake light? Yeah, it sounds a little bit odd. It sounds like if it's the light on the dash that's staying on and then goes off when you put your foot on the brake, it sounds like an electrical issue. Then EGR started leaking coolant at 113,000. Yes, you see that the EGR on them Mk5s, you've got the great big Baker light, or whatever you want to call it, the plastic housing, and inside that plastic housing, you've got water in there, and in the middle you've got like your like a little radiator that your exhaust gases go through and heats up the water. And of course, the water gets hot. You've got the little radiator here, surrounded by water, and then this plastic housing. And obviously this plastic housing gets heated and contracted, and so many times it eventually cracks and then starts leaking. So they just weren't a very good design, were they really? We have to change. I mean, they're bloody expensive. We have to change them all the time. And once again, them EGR valves, I would say if you've got a non-taxi and it's been a looked after car, you may well have to change that EGR from 150,000 miles onwards. Although, if it's a taxi and it's working car all the time, you may have to change that a bit sooner. Thanks, no problem. My 2010 Mark IV 1.8 TDCi has ticked over 225k. Only problem so far is a strut top is starting to knock, and it's a bit hesitant to start on cold mornings. But yeah, I'm a bit hesitant to start some cold mornings. Well, they ain't done bad then. Right, I'm going to knock this Mark V Mondeo lark up to 200,000 miles now. So you'll be lucky if your clutch and flywheel was lasted. Well, flywheel was lasted that long anyway. By 200,000 miles, you've probably replaced the thermostat housing, the EGR. You've definitely replaced your cam belt. You'll be on your coming up for your 200,000 miles. You'll be on your second cam belt and water pump change, including an alternator belt. You'll probably be on your second set of front brake discs. You'll probably be needing to replace your rear brake discs. And if you're very unlucky, you may have to change one or two of your rear suspension arms where they start to creak. And your rear inner anti-roll bar bushes might have a bit of play in them. So possibly one rear shock absorber, passenger rear, tends to be the one that leaks more than anything. Sometimes your rear shock absorbers top mounts may go around about 200,000 miles. It all depends if water gets into the top mount. It can do the sort of like corrode it away. Then it starts getting a bit of play in it. But generally speaking, you will probably find on these Mark Vs that not a whole lot goes wrong suspension-wise. You'd be lucky, I mean, very unlucky if you had a steering rack go wrong. They do go wrong occasionally, but not very often. I've had a few steering racks go, but it's few and far between. So most of the stuff that's going wrong is engine related. But once again, at 200,000 miles, you're at a difficult situation because you're now at the point where your timing chain is on borrowed time. If it was a Mark 4.5 Mondeo 2-litre diesel, I wouldn't even be talking about a timing chain. I would just say put another cam belt on it and be done with it. That's it, end of story. But on these Mark 5s, they have changed. The chain is the same, however, the tensioner is different. It may look similar, but it's not. They're a different tensioner, and they're just not lasting. So you could just change your cam belt at 200,000 miles. If you went down the route of changing your chain and tensioner at 200,000 miles, it's going to be an expensive job. It's not a 5-minute job to change that, and it's going to cost you some money, some serious money to do it. So if you left it, you're probably going to find out that your chain and tensioner may well need replacing if it doesn't snap first. I don't know. Depending on the car, you can go up to 250, up to 300,000 miles, and you're probably definitely going to need a chain, without a doubt. In fact, once we get past the 200,000 mile mark, it's a case of anything can go wrong now. And I'm talking about oil leaks as well. As I've made that video, the oil leak from hell, the oil leak where it's not the rear main oil seal. I mean, you've got the oil leaks which will come from your high pressure fuel pump. Behind the pump, there's a cog unit with a gasket, and they tend to leak. That can be a bad leak sometimes, but I mean, the main leak that we have now, which is really bad, where you can get oil strewn all underneath the car and down the exhaust, is your rear main oil seal end cap. There's a pair of like seals that run down your end cap. The rear main oil seal seems to be very sound, doesn't tend to leak. It's them little seals on the end of the end cap. And to get to that end cap, you have to drop your subframe off, take your gearbox out, take your sump off, take your sandwich plate off, which also involves removing your aircon pump, alternator and all that. There's a big bracket that's got to come off. And then you've got to take your oil pump off, and then you can take the end cap off, just to replace a couple of seals that's cost about 2p. It's a shitload of work to replace a pair of epoxy little seals. And if you can't do that yourself and you have to pay a garage to do that, just to stop an oil leak, it's going to be bloody expensive. And these oil leaks that I'm talking about, they generally seem to be happening on these Mark 5s well over 200,000 miles. So about 250,000 miles onwards. However, I have had a couple 68 plates that have done around about 100,000 miles, and they've been badly leaking. We've had to do them seals. So whether they're not cutting them little seals properly in the factory and leaving enough to get squashed up, and they're shrinking up into the end cap and letting the oil flow past and causing the oil leak, I don't know. Anyway, bike squad. I have a Ford Fiesta 2003. When I drive it, we've had that one. Neil, I love the channel. Well, thank you. I have just bought an X-Taxi, a 66 plate Mark 5 with 192,000 on the clock. It drives like a new car. You can get these cars that, I'll tell you one thing that will make them drive, well, make them feel like they drive like a new car, is if the driver's seat is still in good condition. Because there's nothing worse than sitting in a driver's seat where the padding's been knocked out of it. And it's just like that. If you've got a good, well padded driver's seat, it makes the car feel so much better. But as I've already said, these cars, the suspension on them is really good. I have to say that it is very good. But it depends. It also depends how it's been looked after and what it's had replaced on it. Because by the time you get to 200,000 miles, apart from the main problems that I pointed out on the engine, EGR, thermostat, clutch and flywheel, anything like that, alternator overrunning pulleys, cam belt replacements, water pumps. As far as, let's talk about a little bit about the gearbox and transmission. Generally, the gearboxes are pretty sound. They don't give much trouble. You get a few, if you get a few highly like 200,000 miles for say, you could get a situation where it's crunching in first, second or third on the gear changes. And you'll need the gearbox overhauling, new synchro hubs and that. But if you change the gears properly and you're careful, there's a good chance that's not going to happen. And I would say the gearboxes are pretty damn good in them cars. Also, the drive shafts, they seem to be a little bit of a problem as well when you get a bit of high mileage on them. And I'm talking around 200,000 miles as well. The inner joints, not the outer joints, the inner joints are the ones that get knocked out. The bearings tend to wear out and break up. and then you get a lot of play in the inner drive shaft joints, CV joints, and that can give you quite a bit of vibration. When you start accelerating, you put your foot down, the whole car will start to shake as you accelerate because them inner joints are worn out. And we've found bearings now which are cheap, but before we found them bearings, £50 for a set of bearings, you'd have to buy half a drive shaft from Ford if you couldn't find a second-hand one. And you're talking about £350 for half a drive shaft to repair that. So that's one thing to check on these cars at around about 200k is the drive shafts, definitely, because a pair of drive shafts is going to be seriously expensive if you have to buy them from Ford. And I'll tell you, finding second-hand parts for these cars isn't that easy. So just remember, when you're going to get these cars at high mileages, you've got to think to yourself, if you are buying one, it might be worth getting it really well inspected first, checked over properly, just to see what is worn and what isn't. Daniel, last week my Mondeo Mk5 came up with loads of malfunctions all at once. ESC hill start, ULS ABS and parks assist came on, cleared, it seems to be okay at Mo. Any ideas? I would probably say if all that come up at once, if you put your scanner, put a diagnostic tool, plugged it into your diagnostic port and went into the ABS, you would probably find it'd probably say left front or right front wheel speed sensor. And it would probably be one of them wheel speed sensors that has caused the problem. Because the ABS wheel speed sensors, they do work in conjunction with the engine and various other systems on the car as well. So they can bring up all manner of lights. Normally they bring on 3 or 4 different lights at the same time anyway. So I'd put my money on a front wheel speed sensor. And they're quite cheap. They're about £20–30 a side to buy the sensor. So, and they're not hard to change. Hello, Paul. Keep that glass full. Wait, it's a bottle now. Anyway, good to hear from you. Stefan, I have issue with the car showing me low pressure fuel error. That could be a lot of things, from your fuel filter to your injectors leaking off to your high pressure fuel pump. I've done a video on that sort of like some time ago, but it'd be a sort of like we'd have to spend the evening talking about that. But yeah, fuel filter is the first thing to go for. Injectors, check out, you have to do a leak off test, and if they come out fine, you're possibly looking at the high pressure fuel pump. One more thing, my LED dynamics are not moving at all. Only the auto works. Yeah, they'll probably have to plug that in again to your diagnostics and see if it can come up with anything. Because, or something's seized in the headlights, something's not right. Yeah, it's what, and I'm not an expert on them dynamic headlamps either, because we don't have any. So, it's not something I come across every day. I've had a few cases in the past, but it's turned out to be a problem inside the actual headlight itself. We've had to replace the headlight. Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you, Adam. I was wondering why your boss didn't buy any new Mondeos, asked when he had a chance. Yeah, I've gone through this. He didn't actually own the taxi company in the last year and a half, 2 years. But as things have turned out, he's now the owner again. So if you can't sell the company, then he's going to have to get new cars, because the taxis are coming to the end of their life. They really are. These Mark 5s are getting to the point where it's how much money can you fling at them? There's just so much going wrong with them. So I don't know what more to say. I know what we were on. Where were we? 200,000, 250,000 miles. We're into the territory where we may well be needing to replace the timing chain. And to be honest with you, the chains I've replaced on these Mark 5s, they tend to go around about, on average, I mean, I've had a chain snap at 100,000 miles. That was an odd one. That was a very unlucky one. That was on the 68 plate. But generally speaking, on average, the timing chains will fail around about 250,000 miles onwards. They'll be lucky to make it over 300,000 miles. And it's not the chain that's the problem. It's the tensioner. It's the little guides on the tensioner, the little plastic guides. They disintegrate and break up. And then the chain is running over a metal base. And it snags on the metal base if you keep it running, and it eventually snaps the chain. The good news is, however, if you were to leave your car with a rattling chain and it was to snap, chances are the only real damage it's going to do is maybe break one or two of your rockers. It won't bend a valve or nothing. I mean, a lot of the chains I've had that have actually snapped, because a lot of these drivers, they're out there. They don't hear the chain rattling or nothing like that. They don't notice the noise from the engine, and the chain will snap. And then obviously they've conked out and not going anywhere. And when I get them back, I'll take the top cover off the engine, and most cases, there's no damage at all. You'll put a new chain in it and a new tensioner, and that's it. All the rockers, I'll take all the rockers out and inspect them all, and they're all fine. So the only time I had all the rockers snap was when, and they snap right in the middle, and they're designed to break in the middle so that that they save the valve from bending. The rocker will break before the valve bends, which is really good. That means you haven't got to remove a cylinder head. And the only time I had all the rockers break was when we had a cam belt strip its teeth. And that broke all 16 rockers. But every single chain I've ever had break, I'd be lucky if it even damaged one of the rockers. So it's just a lot of work to take that rocker cover off and change the chain. It's an expensive job. But if your car makes it to 250,000 miles, you will be looking at some expense. From 200,000 up until 300,000. I mean, you're going to be have replaced the EGR, the thermostat housing, cam belts. No doubt you'd have had to replace the timing chain and tensioner, dual mass flywheel clutch. So it's it all depends how much money you're going to spend on it. It's a bit sad, really, because when you take this like brand new car up into 100,000 miles, there's no problem with it whatsoever. It's just perfect. Very, very little is going to go wrong. 100,000 up into 200,000 miles, there's a high chance you'll be very lucky as well. So I would probably say, as the Mark 5 Mondeos go, on average, up into 200,000 miles, you're not going to have a great deal go wrong. Possibly, well, chances are you will replace the EGR valve and the thermostat housing. Maybe, yeah, and a clutch. But I mean, you can expect that. But once you get over that 200,000 mile mark, you're then going to be looking at timing chains, quite possibly injectors, maybe a high pressure fuel pump, because we do have some that pack up and they put metal filings into the fuel. It's not that common, So they are a pretty good pump as it stands. I mean, but they have a spring in them which breaks, which is not too much of a problem to change. But yeah, I won't go too much into the high pressure pump because they're not that bad. But yeah, once you start to get over 200,000 miles, then anything goes really. And you could just have an engine blow up. I mean, we tend to find that the crankshafts, they tend to knock out the big end shells. And it could have something to do with the chains going wrong. And you're maybe getting metal particles breaking up off the tension and all that, going into the oil and then getting around the crankshaft shells and causing damage. And over a period of time, it wears the shell out more. So that's why I say if you had one of them cars and it was your own personal car and you were on your second cam belt at 200,000 miles, that would probably be the optimal time to replace your timing chain and tensioner while you're doing that cam belt. Because bear in mind, when you're doing a chain in one of those cars, you have to change the cam belt as well, really. So it's going to cost you. But if you intended to keep the car for a long time, many years to come, then it'd probably be worth it. Yeah. Well, is there anything else? I mean, anyone else has got any things they've had fall off, which would be interesting? The floor killer. Just bought a Vignale wagon, fully loaded, all-wheel drive, power shift 2-litre diesel. 16,000. Flipping heck, that's low mileage. Well, there shouldn't be nothing wrong with that. not 16,000. Best regards from Warsaw. Well, thank you very much and good evening to you. Thanks for stopping by. Crypto. Crypto anarchist. Love it. Thank you very much. Adam, sorry I sent the same message twice. And what do you think about modern large SUVs? I hate the look of the end. As for the Nissan Duke, no, I don't like them Nissans. Oh my God. I think they're horrible things. I'm not into them. I'm not an SUV type of guy. I just don't like them. They just have no appeal to me. I know a lot of people like them because they're sitting a bit higher up, and I suppose they're all right. But I look at them things. When I look at a car, I think I've got to work on that bloody thing. And when I see an SUV, I think, nah, fuck off. Don't want to know. I quite prefer MPVs. I don't mean the ugly little things like some of them out there. I mean like a nice looking MPV, minivans, stuff like that. My mate's just bought a nice one, Honda. You know, electric doors come out like that. All glass, you know, tinted glass and all that all round. It's nice. You can sit in the back and you know all that. I prefer the MPVs, but I don't like SUVs that much. Yeah, but it's each to their own, really, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people do like them. Matthew, thanks for your videos. Love them. Well, thank you very much, Matthew, and thank you for joining the live stream. I'm going to call it a day in a minute because we've been running nearly 2 hours. I was only supposed to run for an hour, bloody hour. He was always talking about bloody toilet paper and the bloody BBC. Pointy Rock. How would you say Ford reliability has progressed over the years? Pretty well. Pretty damn well. The bodywork has as well, definitely. And the bodywork's never been great on Fords. It's always been rusty cars, hasn't it? by the time we got to the Mark IV and onto the Mark V, we don't even think about rust no more. But as far as reliability has gone, they have been good, very good up until, I mean, the Mark IV, I would say, has been the most reliable Mondeo out there. And I can't speak for every Ford, but as Mondeos go, the Mark 4.5 has been the best one of the lot. The Mark 5 is good in a lot, it's reliable and very good in a lot of ways, but it's just the engine and all the emission related bullshit they've put on the engine, which has taken a step backwards, I'm afraid, and has become a bit unreliable. I mean, it's not like it's difficult things to solve. They're easy things to fix. It's just expense all the time. Shelling out money to fix things that you wouldn't have thought would have gone wrong. So, hello, Mark. Just want to say a massive thanks. I'm a taxi driver and bought a Mark V titanium with a few added extras. Your videos have helped me save so much money by being able to do things myself. Well, that's what it's all about, isn't it? If you can have a go yourself, then you might as well do it yourself. That's what I'm like. If I wanted to change, say, I don't know, a leaking tap in the house, I could watch a YouTube video and work it out for myself. A lot of people won't do stuff like that. They just don't want to know in case they make a right mess of it. Some people aren't very good with hands-on. But I mean, a lot of people like maybe you can see something, you think, oh, I could probably do that myself if I just knew how to. And if there's a video showing you step by step, then why not have a go? If it's plain and simply put so you can, see how it's done, and you think, I can do that, and I understand how it's done, and there's no missing links here, then why not have a go? But yeah, anyway, thank you, Mark. Matthew, how long have you been in mechanics and how did you get into it? Oh, I've been in mechanics flipping, God almighty, a lifetime. Since, I don't know. I was in Marshalls in the 80s and I've been with Steve since the 90s. And ever since, so years, I'm coming to an end now. So a long time. So I've seen a lot over the years. I mean, I can go back to points and condenser. You give me a set of points and condenser, and I can fit them in a distributor, and I can set the dwell angle up, and I can do the feeder blades on the valve clearances and the stuff you were doing all these old cars. I know a lot about all these old cars. I mean, a lot of this stuff, people coming up today, they wouldn't even know what points and condenser were. They wouldn't know what distributor timing was, how to use a strobe light to set up a time and adjust the carburetor. So yeah, I've seen a lot of things come and go. But yeah, I've been in mechanics a bloody lifetime. It's which Mondeo drives better, having better handling, Mark 3 or 4? That's a difficult one. I think they're much of a much. Although the Mark 3 would probably be a bit more of a handful to drive because they were a bit more on the edge. The Mark 4 was a bit more refined, and then the Mark 3, they were a bit crazy. So, but they're all sort of like based on the same chassis anyway. So they were very good for road holding, the Mondeos. So I'd say they're about even. Timestamp. Thank you, Steve. Kenner's Farm. Hello, darling. Hit the like button, please. Oh, I hit the like button for myself. Kenneth Farm saying, hi, Steve. I think she means you, Steve Perry. I have 2016 1.5T 4-cylinder EcoBoost Mk5 Mondeo, 75,000 miles. Should I expect gasket going anytime soon? I've not had any of them engines in where I work, and I've had no dealings with them, so I can't really give a view on that one. The best you can do is Google it and see if there's anyone else saying anything. I really don't know the answer to that. Sorry. It's not the engine we've been working on. Hello, Jerry. Evening, Crazy Al. How are you doing? I'm doing okay. I'm just about to end the live stream now. But anyway, it's nice to hear from you. If you ever pop down again, you know. Anyway, thank you, Jerry, for stopping by. Please, could you tell me what is the torque of the 3 bolts washer on the rocker cover? I was Googling it, and in some places they say 5mm and other 14mm. What 3 bolts are you talking about? Is that the 1.8 engine? You'd have to leave a comment in the comments. Is that, if that's the 1.8 TDCI engine, then leave a comment below. If it is, then I'll look on auto data for you and see what the torque is. How long have you? Oh, we've done that one. Oh, sweetheart. Send him message in his email, and the best way to get answer from Alan. Yeah. I'm not very good at answering my comments. That's the problem. I'm always like days and weeks behind on the comments section. Just bought a 2011 S-Max 2.2 titanium Export for a family car. Have you had much experience with these in your work? Not S-Maxes, we haven't, because all we've got is Mondeos, although S-Max is, I guess it's pretty much the same engine really, isn't it? 2011 S-Max 2.2 titanium. Yeah, I know what engine that is. Yeah, they're not a bad engine. That was the engine before they put in. I mean, the Mark 4.5 has got a newer engine, different engine, but them engines in the 2011, they weren't a bad engine. I've had a few problems with them. They're the ones with the EGRs down the back of the engine. But if they're looked after, they're not bad. And them engines are done all right. I would just say to you, get the oil filter changed and the fuel filter changed at regular intervals. Right, guys, I think I'm going to have to call it a night because we've been running like over 2 hours now. I was only supposed to be going for an hour. But hello, Mick. My Vicky Vito 05 plate passed MO. Oh, well, lucky you. Mine never. And cost £185. That's not bad for an 05 plate. Yes, some more welding. Strange. All welding only near side of van. I have cars like that. It's all rusty down one side and it's all clean the other side. I've seen plenty like that. It's all weird, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, my old van weren't worth welding. It was just too far gone. So that was it. It's gone now. Well, I'll tell you what, for 185 or 200 pound, you've got another year's MOT, another year with your van. So it's a cheap motor in that is good. Hey mate, what are symptoms for thermostat failure on Mark 5? Thermostat failure, they probably leaking coolant. Leaking coolant would be the thermostat failure. And the only other thing that it can do is it be stuck open, in which case your heater will be cold or tepid. It won't be getting hot. Hello, Brian. Thank you too. Right, guys, I'm gonna call it a night. I've had enough. I haven't even finished my beer. So thank you everybody for joining the live stream. I will try and do another one next Wednesday. I'll try and think of another title, something else to talk about. Maybe find a car to talk about. So if I haven't answered your comments, I do apologise. So I will try and get them in the next one. Or if you leave a comment below, I will try and get there before Christmas. So have a good one, everybody. I will see you all in the next one, I guess. See ya. Goodbye.